Hello guys, and welcome to another video. Today, I will teach you something that is very along the lines of almost for, let's say, a beginners with a bit of experience. So I will just tell you about specificity in CSS. Because recently, I actually taught a good friend of mine and they actually kind of struggled, but just a little bit. So today, I will show you how it works. So first, let's actually try declaring a div with a text of hello world. Okay, choose so. And let's try giving that a background color of red. There we go. And maybe a color of white. So I want to give all the elements with the name of div, the background color of red and the color of white. So color pretty much stands for the text color of an element. Right? And then we'll have another element down here. This one will say I am second. And then another one down here. As you can say I am the third. The third, or rather, I will say that's alright. So now all of the div elements have the same properties because we declare them in the CSS file. Now specificity works when it comes to selectors. And selectors are what we use to get elements from an HTML file to actually style them in CSS. So this is what you see right here, the thing that I highlighted. Can I zoom in? There we go. So this selector is called selecting a tag name. So this div here is the tag name for this element, which is, well, a div, or also known as a divider. And the second selector that we have is for class name selector or class selectors. So excuse me. So if I say I want to give the first div a class of greetings, and let us just say that we want to give the greetings, or rather, let us say first that we want to give all of the div elements or all of the div tags a margin of 1 rem and 0. So what this means is that we want to give them a margin of 1 rem or 16 pixels in their vertical axis, and that is top and bottom. And the one on the right is for the horizontal axis, the right and the left. All right. So now let us try giving the greetings a margin of 0.5 rem and 0. As you can see below, it did get reduced. And this is the normal functionality of CSS because CSS stands for cascading style sheets. Now what that means is that all the properties here cascades. That means that the very bottom property or declaration is prioritized over the ones above. However, you must take note of what we call specificity. Alright. Now, classes actually takes more specificity than tag names or tag name selectors. Class selectors take more specificity over tag selectors. What does that mean? Well, that means that, for example, if I put this greetings selector above, it will still work. Although this declaration down here is now at the very bottom of the style sheet, which should have cascaded the property margin 1 rem. Okay, there is one more selector that is of utmost importance to take note, which is the highest one that we have, which is what we call a selector of ID. So what is the ID of an element? That is because the value of an element's ID can only be 1. So let me rephrase that. What I mean is that an ID value can only be applied to one element in an HTML file. Pretty much an identification card, it should be unique. It should not repeat, unlike classes or tag names and other attributes. So let us try to declare, let us say, an ID of greetings once again to the div tag, or the very first div tag. All right. Should try to get this 25. Or what? Hmm? Okay. Let's actually try to give this a 1 rem instead. Oh, I mean 2 rem, because it's not that visible. There we go. So this two has a 1 rem for both top and bottom. Those two. While this one, the very top div, has a margin of 2 rem for top and bottom. Now we have the attribute ID given to this div now, and its value is greetings. So let us actually try to select that. How do we do that? Well, we can use the hashtag. So this is how you select IDs in CSS, or we can also call it query selector rather. So now this became empty because, well, we need to actually finish this because this is considered a syntax error now, since CodePen actually autosaves for me. And then let's try to finish it. We have two things. Then say we want to give this a margin of 3 rem, 3 rem rather. There we go. So now what this means is pretty much all the axes. I, I don't know the plural for axis. Oh well. But anyway, so we give them 3 rem for both top, for all top, left, right, and bottom. And if I say 0 here, just for the top and bottom. There we go, it became larger, and if I do that once again, it got larger. So, okay, let me just put it actually by 4 rem, I guess. So if I try to put this above, this will still take place, as you can see, because the ID selector has the highest specificity. So this will take over wherever this is, as long as there's not another selector down here. But actually, I haven't tried that. Let's actually try to have the same selector. So we select the ID down here. Well, to say hrem. So it takes place. But one thing you should take note is that an ID value, so this name right here, which is greetings, right here, should be unique. So if I say that I want to give this an ID as well, it should be unique. Why is that? Well, as you can see, oh, what's happened? As you can see, it worked in CSS, but what I'm trying to make you watch out for is to spend countless hours in JavaScript trying to select the elements with the ID of whatever value you pass in it. For example, the ID of greetings. I want to get all of them here and it will not work. So usually, since in CSS, we actually aim for um like general abstraction, there we go, to actually reuse classes or like apply a class or declarations or properties to all elements or all tag names. We actually don't use IDs that much. However, of course, you can. Just take note that this ID value should be unique. Additionally, there is an alternative to ID, and it's actually much more specific than ID. And that would be, that would not be a selector, but rather, if you put an important to a property, it will actually override everything else, no matter what. And I think the only exception is actually the inbuilt browser styles. For example, like the autofocus and such. But we will not dig deep into that, so just focus on this one. So from the very top, the selector of ID for greetings should actually take over, because if you notice, if I remove the important keyword, its top and bottom margins are now equal to for them. But if I add the important keyword again, it will go back to 2rem, which is what is declared in this like code line of code. And this line of code is actually inside the selector of the class for the class name of greetings. So a class selector for the class name of greetings. So you can also use this on declarations here. So this down here actually takes the list or the lowest specificity, but still it actually took effect. The margin is now, all of them now has a margin of 1rem for both top and bottom. Top margin and bottom margin for each element. So now these selectors are not confined within just an ID selector, a class selector, and a tag name selector. It is very, there are a variety of selectors, and these are the 3 things that you need to take note of the most of the time when you are starting out in CSS. Because with just these 3, you can do a lot in CSS. However, I will just add one more, and this also has a specificity, which I just searched, the same as classes or class selectors. And this is what we call attribute selectors. Attribute selectors. So you can declare them using a bracket. No, I think it's, oh yeah, it's a bracket. And then this one is braces. Okay. So you can declare an attribute selector using brackets like this. And then whatever you put inside will be considered an attribute. So for example, let us try to give the second div an attribute of data ID. And that would be greetings. Okay. And then now let us try to actually add this as well to the first div. Oh, one more thing. Let's actually try to give it data name instead of ID. There we go. And now let us try to grab that using data name. Okay, so now all elements with the attribute of data name will have a property or declaration of, let us say, a padding 0.25 rem for all axes. There we go. They got bigger, except for the last div. But if I try to add this down here as well, then it will work. One thing to watch out for is, or to be, rather, one thing that is worth remembering is you can actually pass on the value of the attribute. And to do that, you really just need to copy the attribute itself, which is the attribute name and its value, wherein you declare the equal, and then the value. We have the string or quotation marks, can be double, can be single. So let's say, all the data name with the value of greetings, give them a padding of 0.25 rem. So let's say we actually changed this to second div. Okay, there we go. It did not work. And if I changed this selector over here to second div instead of greetings, it is now passed on to the second div because it has the value of second div, or rather, its attribute data name has the value of second div. All right. So the last thing that you need to take note of is the selector that has no specificity. So these are mostly used to get a group of elements once again, but let's just say you want to exclude some or just collect everything. So for example, the star selector. So what this means is we are going to grab all elements. And if it does not have, let's say, just like in CSS, we say like, let's say hi, and then its child, say hello. So now the element with the class name of hello will be selected, but only if its parent is an element with the class name of hi. So in this case, if the star selector does not have a parent, so let's say we have hi here, not there, but beside it, hi, then that means we will grab all the elements or all of the children elements inside of the elements with a class name of hi. But in this case, we will just grab all of them. So let's say we want to give them a border radius of 1 rem. There we go. They have now become somewhat rounded. And let's try to have, let us say, another div here, and a third div, and actually put the text inside of the child. Okay. Now we just want to have all of the divs, all the elements with the tag name of div, select its children, all of it. And then declare, let us say, color of pink. There we go. And now what this means is that without this right here, is that we want to pick all the children. So pretty much all the nested children. So not just the one layer below the selected element. So we have that. There we go. The two of them have a color or text color of pink. And if I have another div, one layer below the selected element div, which is this one. Oh, actually, to make this more clear, because this is also a div right here, let me give it a last button just for clarification, and then select a parent. Okay, there we go. As you can see, they still have, all of them still have the same text color. So this text right here, so if I just change it to I am a nested child, there we go. So this text right here, I am a nested child, is actually its parent container, like one layer above, is actually this one up here. And then the parent of this is this div up here. So the one important thing is if we actually want to change its background color to black, it will still be applied or overridden. That's because there's what we call addition of specificity. So it is actually laid out like I'm lagging. There we go. 0, 0, 0. So this one on the left is the highest specificity, which is the IDs and such. And this one in the middle are the middle ground, like class selectors, attribute selectors, pseudo selectors, which is kind of new as well, and such. While on the least specific ones are the tag names and others. Meanwhile, there's what we call this, which has no value or it will not add a value to either of these three. And this is being overridden. So if I remove this, it will override because we are actually using the class selector right here. And up here, we're only using the tag name selector, which takes one lower specificity than class names. So you can also take note of that even though we are using a selector here, like manipulating a selector, no, we are using, we are adding declarations to an element wherein the selector we used has a specificity of 0 or no value. Even though we use that, we also need to take note of what is declared or selected before it. Just like here, we declared or selected an element using its class name. All right, anyway, so there's one more thing, which is this angle brackets. There we go. So this pretty much means is that the direct children of the element or elements with the class name of parent. So direct children means, well, the elements that is one layer below the element selected. So like only one layer, not the other elements that are nested, like 2 layers below, 3 layers below, etc. Just like this div or yeah, div with the text of I am a nested child in the screen or on the screen. All right. I think that is also for CSS specificity. So there are other selectors for like specificity of no value or like 0, and for classes as well, like the second one. But what I mean by that is this one right here. Oh, not that. There you go. I'm lagging this way. There we go. Okay. There we go. Okay. Still lagging somewhat. Okay. So one last thing to remember once again is to take note that this actually adds up. So let's say we have a class name of parent again. No, studied. No. It's actually like, let's say we have data name equals to parent. And then we actually give this a data name equals to parent. Then the CSS specificity of this element right here will now be equal to 0 to 0, like that. Okay, that is all. Thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something. Good luck on your development journey. Bye bye.